All right, everyone. So, welcome to the final class of Intro to Movement Neuroscience. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. It is a bit strange for me considering it's all virtual, as I'm sure this semester is strange for all of you. I do hope that you enjoyed the course. I know it's a lot of content and it is supposed to be difficult. It's neuroscience, but I hope that it made it exciting and fun, and at least gave you sort of an understanding, a brief understanding or a general understanding of how the neurological system works. So that way, wherever you end up in your careers or whatever path you end up taking, that you'll always sort of remember the sort of like baseline function of the neurological system. Because a lot of research is going sort of that way. Of all the different like systems, neuroscience was the one that was least understood. And with the advent of different types of research and different sort of machines, obviously, that research specifically has been picking up. Before we get started, I wanted to talk about the format of the exam. So I emailed the faculty about 1,000 times and tried to see what their take was on, can you guys see? What their take would be on how to set up everything. But hopefully you guys can see this. This is the posting that is on Canvas. And I just wanted to reiterate that the exam will cover 7, 8, and 9. So those modules. It's going to be 45 multiple choice questions and 25 short answers. 25 marks short answer. So that will include one short answer from each module plus another question. So another fourth question that has 2 diagrams. Okay, and that will equal a total of 25 marks. So in terms of what to study for short answer, remember that the short answer questions have always been sort of like a big component of each of the lectures. So you probably would be able to figure out the 1 or 2 options of each lecture, what would be most likely the short answer question. Yeah, it would just be like the same thing as before, like on the first midterm. Where it's a picture and you have to label like A, B, and C, and D. 2 pictures. Any questions about that, everyone? I gave good hints. So the same hints are still in effect. And I don't know if you guys can see the group chat, but Brittany was supposed to tell us the 13 different tracks. I think the tutorials this time, so question was, are the short answers from tutorial as well? No, they're from the lecture slides, but I do think that you guys covered the same sort of material in the tutorial. So like Parkinson's disease and like spinal cord injuries, understanding like the symptoms. Okay, Brittany, you want to share your screen and show me your 3 columns of how everyone's going to remember the tracks? You're going to teach us now.
Hi there. Hi.
Hi there. Hi.
Welcome. I can't see you, but I don't know if you guys can see my screen. So wait, so does that mean if I unpin this?
Is this the origins and functions of tracks of the spinal cord?
You guys see? Hey, you printed it off. Oh, you made a computer like thing of it?
Yeah. But you said you said that you were gonna help us like incorporate this one with this one.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Okay. So of that, so can you guys see Brittany's screen? I don't know. How should or do you want me to want to present? I don't know how to do this the best way.
Nah,
I'll stop presenting, and you present your screen.
I don't know.
Is that weird? I don't know. You guys.
I'm a noob.
You tell me. Same.
I don't even know how to share a screen.
No, I have to stop presenting, I think. Okay, let's try it. Okay, here we go. Oh my god, here we go. And now you present.
Where am I? Am I here? Can you see me?
If I stop presenting, we can pin her to her sheet. We can pin her screen. Okay. Okay. Yeah, do that. So me pin her screen or Brittany pin her screen? We all do. Oh gosh. All right.
I don't know. It's okay. Never mind. I'm getting cold feet. I'm out of here.
It's okay. We can't see your feet. No. Wow. You can't come back. Come back. It's okay. 2020. And often good. There you go. Okay. So hold up your sheet.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yeah, everyone can see you.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. So what you did was you just took the slide and then printed it off. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So, side note, I think that writing your own, it takes a while, but by writing your own notes, like, you'll learn this more in motor control, but like, writing your own notes, you have to consolidate the information to write it out, right? So it helps you like sort of memorize more. So I think that
do that today. Are we?
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna get a piece of paper.
And then don't you need this one like to know which ones are which on here?
Not necessarily. Like, I mean, because the way that they're described are, so you have like the medial upper motor neuron tracts. So okay, so which ones are sensory, which ones are motor on the diagram?
On this one?
Yeah.
Red is descending motor neurons, and sensory and ascending are blue.
Okay, good. So then, yeah, you can just say like sensory or motor. Obviously, motor is going from the brain out to the muscles, right? And then sensory is coming from the body up to the brain, so you're more aware of it.
Yeah.
So that's why it says descending or ascending. It's just talking about the direction of which way the wires are sending information.
But basically, we need to know these two sheets in and out.
Yeah, but I think it's a lot less difficult than you think, because if you understand like the names of the different tracks, or if you understand like that, for example, the name medial upper motor neuron, it's like medial means like in the middle, and upper motor neurons are motor. So then like motor neuron, right? So then it's going to be medial and then the red. Whereas the lateral upper motor neurons are lateral and are motor. So then it's like you're not even memorizing it. You're just like you could guess off of this you could guess off the diagram based on the way that like the name is describing the location.
I see two dogs. Where are their dogs?
I think I don't see the dogs yet.
Okay, how do I not be teacher?
Like Ken? Well, okay, so then what I'll do is go back to my screen. I need a piece of paper though. Hold up. Hey, Ambry, can you bring me a piece of paper and a pen, please? Yeah. Sorry. Oh man, just getting rid of the COVID.
What?
Ooh, good job. Do you wanna? Are you busy?
No. How do I go over so I can see other people's screens?
Sis, I have no idea. I think that I have to unpin myself. I think. Do you know how you use this?
Because I'm missing out on the dogs and cats, and I'm sad about that.
You know.
Who has dogs and cats?
Well, everyone's showing their pets today.
What?
No.
Are you gonna draw Smokey and call it a day? Is that what you're doing?
I didn't bring my parrot.
You shouldn't.
How do you go to 3 dots? Okay.
Full screen.
Full screen? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Does it work?
Go to 3 dot, click change layout.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh.
To what?
To tiled.
Okay, then it's the second one.
Oh.
Oh.
There you go.
Wow.
Oh, hey, look at all the dogs. Sick.
Oh, so cute.
Okay, best dog award goes to.
Oh, wow, there's a whole bunch of you guys. Oh, Josephine's puppet looking. Oh, there's 2! Oh my god, I'm loud. So sorry.
Was cat there? I like cat. That's all animals. Really.
Oh, I love cats. Oh my god, who is that?
Man, it's got Tupac.
Oh, oh my god, there's another cat.
Oh, there's a Shih Tzu there.
Oh, this is so cute.
That's pretty sweet.
Oh my god, so cute.
Awesome.
Oh,
Hey, see you. Wow. This is fun.
this is so much fun. Oh my god. This is a great class. Who's Kayla? Who's Kayla? Hello?
Kayla's.
Do you not know who your students are?
Well, I mean, I know them by their annoying emails. Hey! Just kidding. Okay. Oh, she went away. Okay. So this is where. So can you guys see me? Yes. I can't see me.
No, yes, they can see you.
No, I can't see me. Oh, there you go. Look at the dog. It's a cute one.
Aw.
Tara's dog. Oh, you can see the names. There you go. Oh, Kayla went away.
Oh yeah, her cat was pretty cute. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Look at it. Cute.
Cool. Best class ever.
Really is.
Yep.
You get.
You know what? 2020 wasn't that bad, really. It could have been worse. Okay. I want to be able to see me. So, okay. Oh, shit. Okay. Can you guys see this? So this is the way that you're going to remember,
They
okay?
don't see you, Nick.
Yep.
Okay.
Check. So, all of you, what are the two different types of neuron directions?
Oh, does not go pets anymore? Okay.
No, okay.
I already did this.
Yeah, we're gonna do
Bye.
it together, Jessica. I mean, sorry, Karen. Yeah. Hi, Bree.
Bye. Good luck on your exam, kids.
Okay, afferent and efferent. Okay. So, in terms of our tracts, remember the word tract means the groupings of neurons in the white matter. So it's a collection of the axons that are for a particular sort of purpose. Okay? So what types of are the groupings of neurons? We have our sensory neurons and we have our motor neurons. Right? So of our sensory neurons, how many different sort of pathways do we have, or how many different columns do we have for our sensory neurons? Sensory. So there's three. Okay, awesome, Matt. Can you tell me what the three are? Three groupings. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So there is the conscious pathways. There is the medial divergent pathways. I'm just writing this down. And there is the unconscious relay pathways to the cerebellum. Okay. Yeah, can you guys see that? Now, of the three different types, so they're grouped into like sort of like function, right? So these are going to be the ones that are sending sensory information to your brain, so you're consciously aware of it. These ones are going to be the sensory neurons that are responsible for the like autonomic responses to pain, like shocks, the medial pain, the medial divergent system. And then these sensory neurons are going to the cerebellum. So they're not conscious, they're unconscious. You're not aware of that information, but all that information is going to the cerebellum so we can process balance, equilibrium, and motor learning. So Brittany, can you tell me the two different types of tracks that are in of the grouping, the conscious relay pathways? Oh, I'm thinking about math, I guess. Or anyone really. Perfect. Okay, so there's two different tracks that are for conscious sensory information. We have our Maddie again, our dorsal column. And we have our spinothalamic tract. Brittany, pull up that diagram and then find those two tracks on that diagram.
Yes, I see
Matt, okay, you can see them?
Yeah.
Where is the dorsal column located?
I don't know. Medial lemniscus.
Dorsal means the back, so it's located at the back.
Okay.
So if you look at the posterior side, the dorsal column is fasciculus cuneatus and fasciculus gracilis, located at the very, very back.
Yes.
Boom.
Fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus.
Fasciculus means like a grouping. So fasciculus cuneatus is the dorsal column for your upper body. Cuneus, like cuneiform bones. And then fasciculus gracilis is for the lower body. Dorsal column for the lower body.
What was the cuneatus one again?
Cuneatus means like hand bones. So fasciculus cuneatus is the dorsal column for the upper body. And then fasciculus gracilis is a lower leg muscle. So they call it the fasciculus. Gracilis means like legs. So it's for the dorsal column of the lower body. But remember, the dorsal column, is for what? Type of sensation. not COVID. Can I ask a question?
Touch and conscious perception?
Yeah. Of? No, conscious touch, proprioception, and vibration. Proprioception. So, Brittany, what is proprioception?
Like the awareness of your body?
Yeah. So, conscious awareness. If I close my eyes, I know which way my finger is. Because I'm consciously aware of it, right? That's proprioception. So we know what this tract is for. Matt, when it says medial lemniscus and anterolateral, it's because when they go into the brainstem, it looks different. So I in this terms of the spinal cord, I say, or no, dorsal column, spinothalamic. Okay, so Brittany, find where the spinothalamic tract is. And then Matt, or anyone, tell me what type of sensation is the conscious sensation is the spinothalamic tract responsible for.
So the spinal thalamus is in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pain and temperature?
Yep. So fine touch, proprioception, and vibration, pain and temperature. Those are our senses. And they are traveling to your somatosensory area, so we're consciously aware. These are the senses we're consciously aware of. So question for you guys. What is the main difference other than the type of sensation? What is one signifying feature that's different between the spinothalamic and the dorsal column tracts?
Doesn't one cross over somewhere?
That's the main point. That's why in medieval times, people don't understand how you can have a loss of sensation on one side and loss of another sensation on the other. It's because the wires cross over at different spots. Yep, exactly.
What are the spots again?
The spinothalamic tract crosses over as it enters the spinal cord, whereas the dorsal column goes up the spinal cord and crosses over at the brainstem, the medulla. Okay. So this is how you're gonna remember the tracks, right? So we have our sensory tracks, we're gonna have motor tracks. But the sensory tracks, we have two conscious ones. What are the three tracks for the medial pain system?
So are we in the divergent column now?
Yep. limbic, spinal, reticular. Okay. So Jacob answered it. So there's 3 different tracks. There's the spinal mesencephalic, the spinal limbic, and then the spinal reticular. What does the spinal mesencephalic tract do? Yeah, so all of these tracks are for slow pain. So Sahar asked slow nociception. Yes, it's all for slow pain. Nociceptors, like, or is another word for pain receptor, but technically our awareness of pain, that is conscious, right? So this is all unconscious. Mesencephalic means midbrain. So the spinal mesencephalic tract is for when we turn our eyes and head towards the location of a very painful stimulus. The spinal-limbic system is for the emotion. Limbic means the limbic lobe for emotion. It's our emotional response to pain. And then the spinal-reticular tract, the reticular formation in the brainstem is the network of interneurons in the brainstem for homeostasis, or autonomic homeostasis, like regulation body. And so that's for our like regulatory responses to pain, like shock. So heart rate, breathing rate, that kind of stuff. Yes, all of these are located, these are all slow pain, right? These are all shock.
So can you go over that again? The spinal mesencephalic one is for pain, and then the spinal limbic is for.
So what, like, not to critique or anything, but I think it's really important for you guys to like sort of know the words, because the word tells you what it is. So mesencephalon is a Latin for midbrain. So you'll see that word a lot. So spinal cord, spine. Mesencephalon means spine to midbrain. And all of these are for slow pain. So this column, all 3 of them are slow pain.
Okay. But don't they have other functions as well?
Yeah, they all individually have functions, collectively creating a response to pain, slow pain pathway.
Do we need to know each individual's like things that they do?
See, there's no direct. So
some of them are for the reflex and all that, right?
Yeah, it's like, so you like, it wouldn't. That's coming from the spinal cord reflexes. So really, all of this, like the particulars of the sensory tracts, you should have known for the last midterm. Sahar has a question. Yeah. So then on this column, what are the unconscious relay pathways to the cerebellum? Does it call spinal? Sorry, the question, Sahar says, if there's a question, we have to write it down. The textbook calls it calls it spinal emotional. I guess you could write it down. The textbook does. Weird. Spinal cerebellar, yeah. So these are our spinal cerebellar tracts. So where are they? There was the internal feedback tract, so there's 4 of them, right? Okay. So then what, I want to make sure that I get to all the different lectures too. So then for our unconscious relay pathways, what were the two groupings? There was the internal feedback tracks and there was the high fidelity tracks, right? So what are the two internal feedback tracks? Guys? Okay. Anterospinocerebellar. You have to be doing this with me so that way you guys can, because it's going to be hard to read off this screen. Okay. Right? So we have our two internal feedback tracks. These are now there's the third column for sensory is the unconscious relay pathways to the cerebellum. This is how the cerebellum works. It takes sensory information. It's not conscious awareness, but we get all of the information from which motor neurons we're using. Remember, the internal feedback tracks send that information via these two tracks from the upper and lower body, or lower and upper body, to the cerebellum. And then the high fidelity tracks are tracks from the proprioceptors that are going to the cerebellum as well. So what were the two proprioceptive tracks, or the two high fidelity tracks that end up in the cerebellum? Cuneo-cerebellar. So remember, there's that word cuneo again, means hand, so upper body. And then we have our posterior spinal cerebellar. That's for the lower body. Okay. So now you can, okay, so these are how the tracks are grouped. And so if you look at the chart that Brittany printed off, it basically gives us information. But now you're not memorizing like 13 different things and it makes more sense this way. And now let's go quickly through the upper motor neuron tracks. So there's medial upper motor neuron tracks, there's lateral upper motor neuron tracks, and then there's the non-specific ones that are for serotonin or neuromodulation via serotonin or neuromodulation via epinephrine or norepinephrine. So Britt, I want you to look it up in the diagrams. Remember, this stuff was from the midterm. Hopefully, you know where to look at that in the slides. But these motor tracks are going to be specific for, because we talk about the upper motor neuron tracks when we're talking about the different Parkinson's outputs. So we talk about, remember, the reticulospinal tract, and we talk about the motor thalamus, we talk about like this sort of premotor tracts, we talk about this stuff. So then with the medial upper motor neuron tracks, so now this is not information that's coming up, it's information going down. So this is information we send out to the muscles. So what are the four medial upper motor neuron tracks? Okay. That is correct. Rahavi said the reticulospinal tract. We have our medial vestibulospinal, our lateral vestibulospinal, and then our medial corticospinal. So Rahavi, what would each of these be responsible for, would you say? So let's talk about first one, the reticulospinal tract. This is coming from our premotor area, or premotor planning area, which is responsible for core and posture muscles, right? This column is for core posture and stability when we're moving. We have to activate our core muscle for stability if we're ever going to do fine control. need a strong base to have fine control with our limbs. So the reticulospinal is from the premotor cortex. It's going to subconsciously activate our core and posture muscles before the initiation of movement. Our medial vestibulospinal, vestibule means equilibrium, right? The vestibular complex to spinal cord. That's going to be responsible for activating our shoulder and neck muscles to keep our head stable based on the position of our head. So if I'm like lying this way, my head's going to remain stable. There's going to be a baseline activation of my neck muscles given the posture that I'm in. Because we put so much priority on vision, our head always has to be stable, or else our vision is going to be all screwy. We have our lateral vestibulospinal. This is for when our inner ear registers that we're standing up. There's a baseline activation of all of our extensor muscles. This is how we can sleep while we're standing. And then the last one is our medial corticospinal. This is for a conscious activation of our core muscles, because it's coming from the cortex, so corticospinal. So medial upper motor neuron tracts. Brittany, can you find out where the medial, so find where these are on the diagram. They're in red because it's motor. You're going to find that they're all located at the like the medial part of the anterior spinal cord. And then for the lateral upper motor neuron tracts, those are going to be for fine control. What are the two?
The lateral corticospinal tract and the rubrospinal?
Yep. So the rubrospinal one isn't really utilized in humans. But the big one, so of the tracts, look at that slide. The biggest one is the lateral corticospinal. This is for fine control of our body. And then the last one, the non-specific ones, these are for neuromodulation. So what are they? Tracts. Yo, I'm crushing, I'm double fisting right here. You feel like Tyler's dog right now? Super cute and black and white? Boom. Yep, so okay, so Jacob, I don't know if you guys can see the group chat. The last one, okay, it says non-specific. So these are the non-specific motor tracts. So there's a rathispinal. So Jacob, what does the rathispinal tract release? So serotonin is for like alertness. So this is going to be for neuromodulation of our spinal cord, sending out serotonin. And this one is for norepinephrine. This is the cerebrospinal, rathispinal. These ones are a little bit difficult because this is the name of the nucleus. So it doesn't really give a sense of like what it does. But this is how you should sort of understand the different tracks, because it's a lot easier to group it and be like, okay, this one does this one does this. Obviously, it's similar, conscious relay pathways, conscious awareness, because it's the conscious relay pathways. These ones, 3 different things, but they all are responsible for slow pain. These words are really, really difficult, but 2 of them are for inner neurons, letting you know what muscles you contracted, letting the cerebellum know what muscles you contracted, and these ones are for from all the proprioceptors, letting the cerebellum know how the muscles are moving. This is how we motor learn. Then we have our motor tracts. This is for activating our muscles, core and posture, fine control, neuromodulation, right? Fight or flight response, neuromodulation. This is 4 different tracts that are responsible for activating our core and posture muscles based on different things. This is for fine control. And then this is for baseline modulation with serotonin or norepinephrine. And this is the way that you're going to memorize all of the tracks. Now remember, I'm not going to straight up just ask you list the 13 tracks. It's going to be in relation to something. So for example, for Parkinson's disease, we're talking about the outputs of the basal ganglia, the globus pallidus, right? They're associated with particular tracts. So if you look at what slide is that tract information on, Brittany? Michael's asking. There's lecture 9, slide 13 and 14, Michael. So I'm going to present now my entire screen. No. Okay. What I'm going to do is go through where we're talking about these tracks, right? Can you guys see my screen? Michael, okay? Guys? Oh, yes, good. Okay, so what you're going to go through is you're going to go through and obviously go through the lectures. Now when you see the tract information, you're going to understand that tracts are just a grouping of signals for a particular type of sensation or a particular type of motor, right? And then you're going to go through and try to understand how everything works a little bit better. And then also for the exam, because I'm a clinician, I like to ask clinical types of questions. So trying to relate everything to how it affects is, I think, the best way to sort of understand the material. So when we're talking about the basal ganglia and cerebellum lecture, what do you guys think would be a really nice short answer question based on all of this? Remember, short answer questions are typically trying to group together everything. And I gave a huge hint about what this would be like, or what I would ask you about. All right, so we talked about the basal ganglia. This lecture 7 was about our regulatory centers. We have our basal ganglia and we have our cerebellum. So we looked at specifically the output of the motor unit and how it works. We talked about this and how it functions normally to inhibit, and how there was a problem when we had basal ganglia, when we had Parkinson's disease. It affects these areas, which are associated with, here's that word again, reticulospinal. And so that's how we get sort of the weird symptomology that you do with Parkinson's disease. Adam says, who's the best name for short answer? The best name column, everything. Unless you want to add Adam. Yep. We talked about hyperkinetic disorders. I don't want to go too fast, but I'm just going through the slides to know the 4 different types of hyperkinetic disorders. And then we talked about the cerebellum. Okay? We talked about the cerebellum and how it functions, right? It compares intended movement via actual movement. So it compares what muscles we activated, right? There's that information. There's those tracks. It compares the information on what muscle we used, and then compares that to information via these tracks on how our body moved. So what muscles we contracted, how our body moved. So it's comparing if we did or acted in a way that we wanted to. And if we achieved the goal better, it remembers the organization of the way that it contracted, or the coordination of how it contracted those muscles. These are the lobes of the cerebellum. And it's basically just organized into the types of movements that it's responsible for coordinating. And that's why when you come through here, you can see, oh, there's that tract information. Obviously, the vestibular cerebellum is going to be associated with the vestibulospinal tracts. Vestibular means inner ear. So if it's responsible for equilibrium, it's going to the medial upper motor neuron tracts, the ones that were responsible for equilibrium, we talked about these. Whereas with gross movements, posture, so we see the medial upper motor neuron tracts. Whereas the lateral lobe of the cerebellum, the cerebral cerebellum, is for fine movement. So it's going to be associated with our lateral upper motor neuron tracts. So I feel like hopefully, and please ask questions, but hopefully if you can kind of like understand how things are linked, it's less daunting to try and memorize it, because instead of being like 100 different things, it's like 10 different groupings. Any questions about that, guys? I know we spent a lot of time on trying to understand the tracks, but I was going to make Brittany do it, but I feel like that way, if you guys can just get that out of the way to understand the different tracks, then it's not so overwhelming when you read it. So, Courtney, do you have a specific? Oh, you don't have any questions? Okay, sweet. What about anyone else? I know it's hard, like virtually like this, but I want to make sure that you guys get it. Remember, with my midterms or my exams, don't try to screw anyone over. Don't overthink the questions. I'm not trying to trick you. Should we be reviewing the clinical parts of the PowerPoints a lot? Yes. So Madeline asked, should we be reviewing the clinical parts of the PowerPoints a lot? And yes, I like to ask clinical questions. I won't make them crazy specific. So if there's a grouping of a whole bunch of different things, I'm not going to be a stickler on a particular type. But I do think that by understanding the clinical parts of the slides, it helps you memorize or understand the information better. So that way it doesn't feel like you're just like memorizing and blurting it out. It's like you actually understand how it works. Like, for example, like a mechanic. If I was to say, okay, name the 700 parts of a car, he's just going to memorize how things work. And then if you show it to me, I'm like, oh, yeah, well, that's a nut. That's like, I don't know, like that's gear, exhaust, I don't know. Do you guys understand what I mean? Right, so just to compare, so the way that the faculty allowed me to do this is that you're allowed to enter the exam from, what did I put in the posting, 11:45 to 1, and then no time limit. Can I continue on, guys? Okay. Any questions? Side note, before we continue on, where's the Zahar? Wasn't what someone was supposed to give us a joke? Was it? I thought it was yeah, it was Zafir. Man, I got scared. All right, go. Jacob's got a joke. Go, say the joke. You want to put on your mic and say it? It's going to take you a bit. Oh, you're going to Google. Okay, fine. So let's continue on with the peripheral nervous system then. You got a lecture review to get that joke, okay? So when we talked about movement in the peripheral nervous system, this slide sort of summarizes, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this summarizes sort of like our control of movement. Right? These are the areas that we talked about. And then when you look on this slide, it's showing our different tracks, right? Here's the medial cortispinal, vestibular spinal, reticular spinal, cerebral spinal, lateral spinal. So now it's not like, oh, I have to memorize this slide, because you already know, like you don't need to know the diagram to understand that obviously for our medial upper motor neurons to be associated with the reticular spinal tract. The reticular spinal tract to be affected by the basal ganglia. It limits the amount you have to try to memorize because you sort of know how it works. Can you guys see the group chat right now? That was a good one. I'm totally stealing that. Jacob gets an A automatically. Jacob, you get my COVID vaccine line bypass. That was a good one. Spinothalamic. The spinothalamic tract and dorsal column walk on a bus. Spinothalamic tract says it feels freezing out there, and the dorsal column says I don't feel a thing. Because you get it? Because the dorsal column doesn't feel temperature. It's Tinder gold. The rest of sort of the movement section on this slide was just describing the sort of how movements can be classified into 3 broad categories, and they're going to be associated with different tracks. So when you go through, so we have our movements can be defined as postural movements, ambulatory movements, or moving, like location versus reaching and grasping or fine control. So there's crossover between the 3, but now when you go through the postural movements, obviously postural movements are going to be associated with type of motor neurons. Oh, Jacob says sick. Actually, you're going to get the vaccine, so you're not going to be sick. So guys, someone told me, without looking at the slide, if I'm going to be doing movement that's, so that's the medial upper motor neuron tracts, right? Medial upper motor neuron tracts are for posture and core. Ambulatory movements, okay, so we talked about different postural control, how your body works through that. Ambulation is going to be a different type of movement classification. It's going to be associated with particular tracks. The one that we talked about was the track that activates the stepping pattern generator. That's the reticulospinal tract. And then reaching and grasping, that's fine control. So of the tracks that we talked about, this one's going to rely heavily on our lateral corticospinal tract, or the lateral upper motor neuron tracts, because that is for fine control. So by knowing the tract information, then you can go through and say, look at the slide and say, okay, well, there's 3 different types of classification of, like, broad classifications of movement. Postural, that's obviously going to be associated with the postural tracts, so the medial upper motor neuron tracts. Ambulatory, that's going to be that's going to be the reticulospinal tract, because we talked about the stepping pattern generator. So that's the medial upper motor neurons. Plus, there's going to be some fine control in there. And then reaching and grasping, well, that's fine control. That's like fractionated movement. That's the lateral upper motor neuron tracts. So when you get to the slides and sort of go through it, you've already anticipated what tracks it utilizes. So it's less about remembering what tracks are associated with which. It's about just understanding how the thing functions. Like with reaching and grasping, you have to use sensory information to sort of alter your movements. With postural control, we use vision, we use proprioception, and we use equilibrium to compare that to figure out how we can maintain our balance. Then the last half of the lecture was talking about the peripheral nervous system. And then we talked about how the nerves, when they exit the spinal cord, how they recombine to create all of the peripheral nerves in our body. And peripheral nerves are the ones that typically get injured, because they can get injured like peripherally. So they can get injured by repetitive strain, they can get injured by being crushed, or like cuts, or muscle problems. And when people come in with neurological issues, the way to tell whether or not it's a peripheral nerve issue versus a central or spinal nerve issue is by the dermatomal or peripheral nerve distribution of that injury. Kayla asked if we can Can you guys do that in the other? Is that a setting? Shall I ask, can we use a paper on the exam? We show it to the camera and then write it out all the different tracks. So you show it and you're allowed to write it? Okay, yeah, then just I don't think it's a set. I'll ask him, but yeah, then sure, yeah. You show the piece of paper, blank, I guess, and then you just write it out. Yeah, I would totally do that, and then write this out. Yeah, do that. Because then you're not memorizing the tracks. You're like, oh yeah, like the tracks are like the setup, the hookup from the like audio receiver and the like like the PS5 to your TV. It's how you like because then you it's about the global function of how everything works, not just memorizing the tracks. Okay, so of this lecture, what would be a really good short answer? Talking about the different injuries, right? So we talked about how the nerves are structured, how when you have a peripheral nerve issue, because they're mixed, you can get sensory, motor, and autonomic issues. So depending on the number of nerves that are injured, you can have different types of clinical presentations. So we talked about mononeuropathies versus multiple mononeuropathies and polyneuropathies. And then we talked about the different classification of mononeuropathies. And based on like the severity of the injury, can affect the myelin, the axons, or cut the nerve in half. So go through and sort of understand that. You guys okay? Okay. And lecture, okay, so then we'll finish off lecture 9. So I'll change the notification. If you, I don't know where the setting is, but if you show the paper that it's blank and then write it down, or I'll let you do that. Okay. So the spinal cord lecture, we reviewed spinal cord anatomy, right? It's really important to understand how the spinal cord is sort of put together. So we look at this one, and then we also look at so how sensory information comes in the back end, motor information comes out the front end. That's important to know. And then we have 13. Then we have all the tracks. So Brittany, look at this slide now. So this is our lateral upper motor neuron tracks. These are our medial upper motor neuron tracks. This is the sensory tracks, dorsal column, and these are the lateral ones. Now, if you look at the slide, see how it says, can you guys see? See how it says CTLS, CUTLTLS? Can you guys see that? That means cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, or cervical, upper thoracic, lower thoracic, lumbar, sacral. Because everything's organized, right? So this is our lateral group. So this is how all the neurons are going out, the lateral upper motor neurons are going out to the muscles, but it's situated in an organized fashion. So from the neck, mid-back, lower back, butt. Now remember how we were talking about the dorsal column, fasciculus cunatus. It's associated with the cervical upper thoracic, this is the upper body. Lower fasciculus gracilis, lower body. Lower thoracic, lumbar, sacral. No, you wouldn't. Well, okay. So Natalie asked, would we be expected to know on the exam like the letter part? So no, I won't ask you. But the thing is that you should know for this one specifically because this one's the fasciculus cunatus. So obviously, so that's like upper body, lower body. So like it would go in like a spectrum, like gradual, like everything from the neck, lower neck, upper back, upper like shoulders, upper back, lower back, butt. Just think about it. So if you were gonna like create a sick audio computer setup, you're not gonna take one wire for one random thing, like throw it, and another one and just throw it. Like just have a random collection of stuff. You organize it, right? So it just so the diagram just goes to show you that like, the things are organized, which would make sense for the body. Okay. So then there's the slide that Brittany printed off. Okay, so we talked about the spinal cord, and then we talked about how the spinal cord was coordinated in terms of, or how it contributes to coordination because of its the use of interneurons. So that was the big theme of the mid part of the lecture. And then we talked about like a really simple example of how afferent interneuron information can affect the signal coming down, so it can affect different muscles. It decreases, so if you have coordination occurring through the spinal cord and through reflexes, it takes away the amount that the brain has to process. So super, super important. I would know the examples that we talked about spinal cord coordination from this lecture. So we talked about the 7 pattern generators and the reflexes. And then the last thing that's really, really important to know is the sort of different types of presentation of spinal cord injuries. Now, they all sort of make sense. If you look at that diagram that Brittany printed off and the one that we talked about, if you know where the injury is in the spinal cord, now you can relate that back to which tracts would obviously be aggravated. So here, anterior cord syndrome, the one that's not affected is the dorsal column. So they still have fine touch, proprioception, and vibration. This one, central cord syndrome, it's affecting just the middle. So it's affecting the one tract that crosses over the spinal cord, which is the spinothalamic tract. So it affects the pain and temperature sensation. This one, you have half the spinal cord being affected. So you have a break of half the spinal cord. So it's going to affect ipsilateral fine touch proprioception or visual, ipsilateral dorsal column, and ipsilateral motor, but contralateral spinothalamic, because it's the spinothalamic tract that crosses right over. At the level of the spinal cord. And then the last one was the coda equina syndrome, which is affecting the sympathetic system in the bowel and bladder. So that's a particularly relevant thing because it's a clinical emergency. So I hope that this was worthwhile for you guys. We just have a couple more minutes left. I'm going to unpin me so I can see you guys again. Feel free to turn on your microphones and give me a shout out or talk about any questions that you have. I spent a lot of time talking about like how to do this sort of diagram, but I think that if you can learn how to do the diagram and quickly write it down when you're doing the exam, you can just get it out of the way so that we can concentrate more on understanding how everything like functions in the neurologic system. Kayla asked a question. She's gonna say a question, but are we allowed to have a coffee drink during the exam? So I want to say we're allowed. What does it say? It's like so what my screen is like settings. So there's no like can you to be honest, I have doctor writing, so it's like terrible. What can you guys like just screenshot this and then post it on just post it? Can you guys see? So Avery, it's very blurry. Direct me here. Move forward, move back, up. Yeah. Up, still up. Closer. It's gonna screenshot my screen is blurry. Oh, okay. Fingers down. Usually I go fingers up. Yeah? Screenshot it? Someone screenshot and post this. Yes, are we good? Back and left. Yo, my left, your left. Oh, good puppy. Yeah, we're good? Okay, good. My left. And back a bit, okay? Yeah, I'm basically doing a plank right now. Boom. Go, Britt. All right. Whew. Any other questions? Was the course worthwhile? Here, I want to unrecord this so we can like be candid. Stop recording.